aired by broadcasters and its policing role aimed at ensuring that licensees adhere to the programming code. Communications Authority of Kenya Acting Director General Wanjau says the regulator is particularly keen on ensuring that decent content is aired during watershed period so as to protect children. Our reporter Regina Manyara spoke to the acting DG in the wake of two broadcasters being penalized in the last 2 months after airing what the regulator described as indecent content.
Good evening, you're watching Business Insight and I'm Regina Manyara. The question is, how's the communications sector been performing? Taking us through this conversation is none other than Acting Director General Communications Authority of Kenya, Madam Mercy Wanjau. Thank you very much for your time. So let's start off with the statistics. How have we performed so far?
The sector statistics are positive in terms of growth. We have seen increase of subscribers across the telecommunications platform, an increase of users in the postal platform. So that is positive because in this time of the pandemic, obviously, we realize that people are relying very, very heavily on technology to be able to communicate, to work, to transact, and we are enabling this. We also recognize that with this increase, there's also the sharp incidence of the rise of cybercrime or cyber incidents and the rising vulnerability to children and even adults on the internet platform. A lot of purchases, for example, are happening online. So financial transactions have increased very sharply in the last 1 year, and part of what we are doing to ensure that protection and awareness is heightened is sharing a lot of information through webinars, through social media and other platforms that people would be aware on what cyber threats look like and what it is they can do about it.
Pointing at that sectoral growth there, issues of digital transformation, is this something that we're likely to witness for the long haul?
So we do recognize that in the time of the pandemic, there's a heavy reliance on technology as an enabler, whether it's for business, whether it's for education or communication. And as a result, those populations in this country that do not have access to Signal or other platforms are really, really excluded. In order to bridge that gap, the Communications Authority of Kenya is working at an enhanced rate towards the implementation of products or projects under the Universal Service Fund, and part of this is the Phase 2 voice connectivity, which we are currently at an advanced stage of mobilization, which will ensure that areas that do not have access to network will begin to experience that transformation that Signal and the other enablers can bring within those communities.
In the recent months, as a regulator, you have issued some corrective measures in as far as local content producers are concerned. Maybe you can give us a brief.
Over the last 20 years, we all have witnessed the growth of the broadcasting industry, where we started off with one channel, and now we have over 100 channels covering different niches, different genres that address the various audiences we have in this country. The bottom line of going on air is that broadcasters owe a responsibility to their audiences, particularly during a period that is referred to as the watershed period. This is a period that is dedicated to family viewing time because it recognizes that families are likely to be watching, meaning that they're adults and their children, and they need to observe good taste and decency within that space. So we do have one of our licensees who aired content that was of an adult nature within the watershed period, and it became necessary to take the appropriate actions, as we have taken today, to ensure that when they do come back on air, the appropriate mechanisms have been put in place to safeguard audiences, particularly vulnerable audiences such as children. And we also have required that they, as part of the corrective action, they will air content that is aimed at desensitizing any children who may have been exposed to that programming as part of the corrective measures. Thereafter, of course, we will continue to monitor, as that is the requirement, that is the responsibility of the Communications Authority of Kenya, to monitor the airwaves and ensure that they are used and dedicated for resourceful purposes.
In some quarters, some local content producers have said some of these corrective measures are too draconian and infringing on their freedom of expression. As a regulator, is this so?
Yes, with regard to the broadcasting mandate, we do have the requisite tools to take charge of that area. But as we are all aware, culture is evolving very, very fast and across many fronts. Now, our contribution as the authority is to ensure that when the free-to-air TV is switched on in any home or any place where viewers are watching, that it carries the content with a responsible way in a manner that is required by the regulatory tools. We do have a programming code that sets out in great detail the timing and the manner and the tone of content that is supposed to be displayed on these stations, and that is a commitment that we continue to keep up to ensure that our airwaves are safe. So that statement, I think, is not valid, and if it were valid, these tools are not fixed in time. They're always up for negotiation, and perhaps the better platform would be to open up these instruments for negotiation so that we're able to keep reflecting what our tastes and our requirements and the evolving of culture represent, so that then it would be a robust response to our emerging culture.
As we embrace digital transformation in all aspects, be it business or even how we communicate, then we are also picking up risks. Where do we stand when it comes to countering cyber threats?
Cyber threats will always be there, just like we have criminal activities happening in the real world. But the catch here is the sensitization and the awareness of what these dangers present and what to do about it. This is a relentless commitment from the Communications Authority of Kenya, and we do not do it alone. We do it together with our licensees, we do it together with other partners, because it's a great force and needs to be met across the board by many, and we will carry on with that. Of course, in doing that, we are also guided by emerging practices and trends worldwide, that we are able to really capitalize on them and ensure that the effect and the impact is lasting. Indeed, I quite agree with you that even as you pursue gains and benefits, you must never for a moment compromise the population, even in the search of those gains. And it's a constant need. So allow me to say at this point that one of the critical markers is the collaboration and the cooperation that we receive from our various licensees, and they have done us proud. And to encourage that their compliance is our success, is the success of all of us, and also to encourage consumers, when they do come across something that is disturbing or concerning, to let us know, so that we would be able to look at it and guide or take corrective action. We must do this together.
What is the regulator doing to ensure online safety, especially for minors?
Yes, indeed, there are very many protections that have been put in place for children and other populations to ensure that what they access is wholesome. Coming to the issue of child online protection, this is one of our flagship projects actually for the last couple of years, and we have really enhanced it during the COVID pandemic, and we'll soon be running a campaign on child online protection in recognition of the very issues that you have mentioned. Children are learning on these platforms, they're spending a lot of eyeball time on screens and on the internet as a protective measure, and this will be running. We will also be enhancing it actually to include gender-based violence, which is yet another aspect that has emerged, and there's data and statistics that has come from the Ministry of Gender to establish that actually this is on the rise, and so we will be broadening it on that category as well. But coming to your question around gaming, is yet another of those trends trends that are on the rise. And we have recognized that this is a space where we share jurisdiction with the BCLB, Betting and Control Licensing Board, and we are working very closely together to pursue this area that is of mutual concern to ensure that access and administration of betting and gaming is also done within the rules.
What is your take in regard to the fact that Kenya has already now rolled out 5G? What impact then will it have to digital access as well as digital transformation?
This is really taking us to another level in terms of digital transformation. And recently, last year, actually, His Excellency did launch a digital transformation vision for this country. We are seeing a lot of public service delivery shifting to the online platform, starting, for example, with the communication of exam results is done online, payment of taxes is now done online. We are now getting used to the idea that you can begin to pay your bills and to monitor your various other affairs online. So this is a trend that is happening towards digital transformation, and this is a global trend. So with the adoption of new technologies like 5G, what this will do is to increase speeds, to increase clarity and provide a new offering, better quality offering. And as we do that, we also seek to bridge the gap in the areas where there is no signal, so that at the end of the day, we ensure that no one is left behind as we take that voyage, let me call it a voyage, towards digital transformation, because the benefits are numerous. Creation of jobs, availing of opportunities that are out of boundary, and this is something we must pursue as a young country with a young population, with with great leadership in technology. This is an opportunity that we really would like to seize.
Highlighting the issue of competition, especially within the telecommunications sector, how do we compare? How does the competition look?
Competition is an organic event, and it keeps changing from time to time. In this time where we have seen quite a number of businesses depressed and people off work, you note from the statistics and the emerging trends I have shared, there's been an element of growth, and we encourage this. And the role of the Communications Authority of Kenya is to backstop and watch the trends and put in the necessary corrective action where it seems to be going off. But we are happy to report that even in this time, the trends are positive, and we are watching and we are monitoring, and we'll come back, because at the end of the day, we owe our responsibility back to the public to give feedback on what corrective action we are taking.
What does the future portend for matters of telecommunications post-COVID?
I think Kenya will never be the same again. Fortunately for us, in recognition of the African continent, we were well placed to deal with the COVID realities. Our penetration in terms of statistics across the board, whether it be broadcasting, radio or TV, or the postal and courier industry, were positive, and they have continued to grow. This has meant that actually our way of life has changed in more ways than one. And it will only take time for us to reflect back and see that indeed we have really moved. So the challenge for us is that even as we embrace this new way of life, that we would embrace it in a way that is wholesome, a way that is inclusive, and a way that puts appropriate safeguards for populations that are vulnerable.
Parting shot, Madam DG?
As a parting shot is to indicate to consumers overall that we have your back, and we are doing what needs to be done in this time. As far as a provision of universal service and closing the gaps for those who do not have the service, this is the commitment that we must carry on and bridge the gap. In this season, only technology really can bridge some of these gaps, particularly when it comes to public service delivery or even education to the young populations. So on that, we carry on in order so that we can narrow these gaps or even eliminate them. Going on the other side, on aspects of consumer protection, particularly safeguarding for vulnerable groups, we carry on with some of our flagship projects, the child online protection, the gender-based violence aspects that we are also taking on board to ensure that awareness is heightened, and that even as we put these platforms in place, that they are platforms that will deliver good, that they will deliver value, and we are able to minimize as best as is possible on the unintended consequences that would present.
There you have it. We have been speaking to the acting Director General Communications Authority of Kenya, Madam Mercy Wanjau. The regulator assures that it is going to continue performing its mandate in this regard to make online safety a priority. I'm Regina Manyara. You've been watching Business Insight.